That's going to be Kristian Campbell, Boston Red Sox. He comes in at number 2 for us. Our model has him positionally kind of scattered, but I think we are looking and projecting him to be a second baseman for Boston. Pretty incredible season when you look at the underlying numbers, the stat line in general. Scout the Stat Line has him peak projections just below McGonigle on the WRC Plus at 127.5, batting average of 276, on base percentage 360, slug at a 462, 21 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 10% walk rate, 22% K rate. Had an incredible season. We don't, at least I personally don't love the swing. We talked a little bit about that with Chris Clegg, and his message to us was just, hey, it worked everywhere, and that was the surprise, right? He just continued to perform. So, Doc, Kristian Campbell, helium is plentiful around the industry. What are your thoughts on Campbell being number 2 for STS?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably number 1 in the second base ranks for every non-robot these days. I think his ceiling is pretty clearly higher than McGonigle's in that he's a bigger guy, his power's there, and his power is gonna play up much more than McGonigle's will. I think we're seeing a great everything. Basically, it's very exciting for the Red Sox. Gosh, I think there was a bit of hesitation from myself and maybe others. I feel like everyone, when we all caught up to, well, how did these prospects actually do at the end of the year? There's so many prospects. Let's look at them all. No, I can't really put Campbell in the top 10. Was he really that good? And you look in, you dig deeper, and you're like, oh gosh, he really just became something else, right? Almost seemingly out of nowhere. But that's the way prospects work sometimes, right? I would say if you have to try to look for, if you have to look for a downside, I'm seeing at AAA, got caught twice stealing out of 6 attempts. So it's 4 successful, 2 unsuccessful. 17 successful, 5 unsuccessful, AA, 3 versus 1 at high A. That's not great. It's not like I'm super freaked out or anything, but I'm just saying if you're going to get caught a lot at the major league level, there will be less opportunities. And maybe if his bat and power keep increasing, maybe they don't even want him stealing. They just want him to focus on hitting and let the other smaller, less powerful guys handle that kind of thing. So we may see not as much of like a 32. I mean, what's our ceiling here, right? Like great ratios, 30 home runs, 20 stolen bases. I guess if I had to try to find, because I feel like everyone at this point, he is kind of like become Roman Anthony in that we almost can't find a fault. I'll raise the slight fault of maybe we don't see 20 stolen bases. Maybe he's more of a 10 to 12 guy.
Yeah, it's hard. I hate the swing, but I hated Mookie's swing as well. And I still don't like Mookie's swing. Actually, I like the swing. It's more the mechanics leading up to the swing. And Mookie's a Hall of Famer. So sometimes these guys, when the visual test, it just doesn't matter, right? Because what we're seeing is continued success. And I don't like to put a Mookie Betts comp on a guy, but it just feels interesting and organizationally. They say they wore the same uniform. Mookie's smaller. Kristian's quite a bit bigger. And I do think you're right. I think we see that speed trickle off as we get into the mid-20s, especially as we get into his prime years. But the body and the power is there. And I think we have an all-star on our hands. And that's why he should be, as you said, number 1 for the non-robots. It will be interesting to see if Boston can give him a job, right? We talked about Colt Keith and having the opportunity there. Well, Campbell needs the opportunity. So does Roman Anthony. So when does Boston kind of take the training wheels off, I think is the question. And I'll leave that up to you. Do you think he gets 130 games in 2025 at the big league level for Boston?
130 games is a lot.
It's a lot.
I think over 100.
Okay.
I think he's older than Anthony. He plays second. He plays the outfield. It seems like he could do a lot more than Anthony can in terms of defensively. So he might actually get the first crack, which is interesting because he kind of came out of nowhere, right? I still think I had Anthony because of the age. Because of Anthony's lower age and less seasoning, I will say that his upside is actually higher because he's doing all basically the same things at a younger age, so his upside's higher. But by that same token, Kristian Campbell might get that first crack. And so it could be opening day. It depends on what the Sox and their philosophy is going to be. They're gonna if both these, it's almost like a great problem to have. Imagine both these guys come out guns blazing in spring training, hitting crushing bombs. The fans will just be demanding they're both up, right? And it's and no one. And by the way, when I say fans, I also mean like fantasy guys. You know, like we're never gonna learn our lesson, folks. We can see Holiday, we can see Mayo, we can see all these guys. You need some extra cooking, and we'll never believe that the teams know better than us. So it'll be interesting to see, but he will get an opportunity sooner than later.
Well, and to your point, we saw that with Jackson Holiday. Didn't work out so well for young Jackson last year.
Yeah.
And we got to kind of temper those expectations a little bit.